YouTube. We're gonna open this box right now. Super excited, all new from E-flite. We're gonna see if it's any good. If you guys are brand new to Brian Phillips RC, we unbox them, we build them, and we radio set them up in the Unbox build radio setup. I know it's hard to figure out. There it is, guys. 1 meter sport scale warbird for intermediate to experienced pilots, whatever that means. So it's skill level number dos amigos, fixed gear, don't know what else. We're gonna open it and find out right now. 3 or 4S compatible. Smart technology, includes exclusive Spectrum gear. So we'll see how far that goes. And we're gonna see what it means when they say easy to fly, or easier to fly. Should have safe and AS3X. And we'll show you how to set it up with the radio system. We'll be using the NX10. Of course, this thing has 20 channels now, which is pretty awesome. If you guys are brand new to the hobby and you're just getting back to the hobby, deciding what transmitter to get, the NX7E has 14 channels. It's gonna go a long ways in getting you where you wanna be. But I can tell you this right now, if you know you're hooked, just get the 10 or get something even better if you want. Okay, so manual is right here. We'll see how this comes out. Now, keep in mind, ours are early product development samples. Ours was number 4. And the way I know that is because there's a piece of tape on the ground at my feet. Okay. And if you guys are brand new to Brian Phillips RC, we enjoy a good manual. We read them thoroughly and follow all applicable instructions, never deviating even a little bit.
Never.
Always. Okay, so we're gonna untape this thing. And if you guys see a minor scrape on the wing and the nose cone, that is because somebody else did it. But I'll be doing it shortly too. Obviously it's dark now, so it might take us a minute to get to the flying part. Okay, so fixed landing gear. This has been a recent vintage thing. Let's see if they're rock hard. They're not. They're squishy-ish. They're not super soft, but they're squishy-ish. It looks like a pretty strong setup. Nice reinforcement from the plastic, but still thin, so it's light. And feels like spring steel, so that's always good. A little bit of detail on the wheel, kind of an ugly retainer clip. Looks like we have a left and a right, and they are very similar, but they are not exactly the same, so they're gonna be symmetrical. And then it looks like a couple of screws, 5 to be exact in that bag. 1 more must be for the spinner, I'm assuming. And then 3 as well as a bind plug. Now the bind plug you shouldn't need anymore if you're using Spectrum Smart Gear, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So we're gonna cut this out as well. And that brings us to the wing. So, foam to protect the foam from the foam. Looks like we have outboard ailerons, very light, very light. Love the invasion stripes, love the olive drab on top. Very nice finish, painted, fully painted it looks like. Quick release plug here. So that's gonna do our ailerons. They are definitely wired together. It looks like we've already got some grass staining here. Oh wait, that's just white plastic. Yeah. Carbon fiber, fiberglass wing spar, which sets the dihedral on the wing. Pretty stiff, feels good. A little bit of room to adjust here if you want. Ball links on the wing clevises here. So that looks like it's gonna be a pretty smooth operation. And again, this is a little bit smaller plane, so you may not see all the features that you see on a 1.2, which would usually include retracts and LEDs in the sort. So I'm not sure if we have LEDs on there. I didn't pay attention. And let's pull this thing out. Of course, I'm a big fan of LEDs and flaps, and so I see no flaps already. And this is the Ferocious Frankie. Okay, pilot looks nice. Pretty simple cockpit area. And of course, the body is really nice finish on it. Okay. AR631 Plus, which by the way, if you didn't already know this, the AS3X Plus is gonna be equipped on the AS3X Plus receivers like this. But if you have an old one, you can update the firmware and actually get it into the AS3X Plus platform. This is a steerable tail wheel, but it is physically attached to the rudder via this ball link. And then this linkage, of course, goes to the rudder. as you can tell from this. And then this one goes to the elevator. So A383 servos, which are nice high quality Spectrum servos, pretty much come to be expected. Plastic here allows you to get into the battery opening. You can see we've got a smart plug here. Yep, there's that number 4 again. And we have an IC3 connector here. Of course, that's gonna get cut off in just mere moments. And this is a binding plug, which we won't need access to, except that if we already have the wing on. So we might bind ours before we mount the wing, if we remember. But that explains why they gave us a binding plug, because you may not be able to get to that given that it's upside down. Now there is another trick that we've done on other planes. I don't know if we'll be able to do it on this one, but if you look real quick, camera crew, if you want to just pay attention to right in the middle part of the wing, this is going to line up, and it looks like the receiver is right on the edge of this black box, okay? So that's where the bind button is. I'm gonna just drop this wing on real quick just to see how easy of a build we've got. This does look like it's gonna be a pretty easy build, but I'm having trouble lining that up. You guys see what's going on there? These pins go into a self-centering plastic socket. I just wanna make sure I'm not gonna force it in and have a misalignment on the servo plug, but that feels not good. I think it's in there. Okay, now it's in there. Okay. So this box is gonna tell me where I need to be, which means I would need to have a hole right there. So guess what I'm gonna do?
Oh, really?
Because I can. And I don't wanna have to do this again. So I'm gonna look at this black box here.
No, it was at the front of the black box, wasn't it?
Because I don't want to do that. Okay. Now I just got to make sure I've got it in the right spot, and I'm going to do that while I've got access to it. Now you guys don't have to do this obviously, but that's what I'm doing because I want to be able to bind this thing the easy way. And if you look, now when you pull this off, you can tell, yep, I missed. So I'm like a half an inch away. So it's going to be right in front of the air scoop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do that right there. And that's because I don't wanna have to keep a bind plug around handy to be able to press the bind button, okay? You'll never know any better, and it's no big deal. And by the way, if you guys have never put a hole in a plane before, get ready to do it because it's so easy to do when you crash into a tree. And then all you have to do is use some lightweight spackle. Oh, I gotta be really close. Really, really dang close. Really dang close to the bind button. So I'm just looking for the bind button here. Come on now. You got it, Brian. We've done this before and found success, and it's worked really nice. So we'll come back to that here in a little bit. So we can take that wing off, and you guys see how easy that is now that we've done that a number of times. I've figured out kind of the feel. There it goes, it clicks. So just be careful. You don't want to break the connector, but you do want to get that seated. And by the way, it is quite easy to do that, okay? So also I noticed that this tray, I'm just going to take my number 4 off of here so I can see what else is going on. Okay. So this is going to be able to come out once we get our cable, our bind plug presser installed. And by the way, if you guys don't have a plane stand, you might want to think about getting one. We've been using the same Robart plane stand forever. It's been really handy. If you don't know where to find stuff like this, just check our links in brianphillipsrc.com, and you can look and find tools like this. Talcum powder, if this thing is brand new, you won't be able to slide it like I just did, very easy, okay? The talcum powder makes that super easy. And then we also have one more surface on the bottom that I almost missed, and that'd be the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. Just gonna peel that out real quick. Everything is taped in foam to protect the foam from the foam. Looks like this is a taped to reinforce pinch hinge. If you look right there, you can see the tape. Do you see the edge? Give me that screwdriver, please. I'm guessing that when the people at home are watching, they won't be able to see. That's the edge. Yep, so they taped both the top and the bottom, and then they painted it, which is nice. So it looks really good, and you've got a nice strong music wire that goes from the left to the right. That is a big point of failure that we've seen on a lot of smaller planes, is when you have a wire that is not substantial enough to keep the left and the right even, okay? So like even here, you get to the extremity, look at that. See that? It pulls just a little bit further on this side, but that's at the full extremity. Your servo's not strong enough to push it to that extreme, okay? So just keep that in mind. If you ever have an asymmetrical elevator movement, it wants to roll on you, that can be because of that linkage. Not on this plane so much, but we've seen it before on other models. Usually E-flite does a really good job on that sort of stuff, and so we don't see a lot of problems in that regard, okay? That's part of the reason why occasionally you'll pay a small premium for E-flite products, but it's worth it because they end up flying better. And if you guys are brand new to the hobby and you're just returning, E-flite branded stuff is usually some of the better stuff you can get. It doesn't mean there's not other good stuff. We review a lot of other brands, and but I can tell you this, if you want to have something that's going to be a good experience, starting with an E-flite is a very smart move. Also, that's everything on the packaging. So you should be able to go ahead and assemble this. This is going to be a very quick build, guys. I mean, like minutes, okay? Speaking of minutes, let's go ahead and talk about the assembly. What do we need for tools? Well, as you can see, I used a big long screwdriver to poke that hole. We don't necessarily have to do it that way, but that's the way I'm doing it. And we're gonna have to, of course, have something like this.
Phillips screwdrivers.
Phillips?
Yep, everything is
for the
Phillips.
wing? Seriously? What the heck?
I don't know, that's strange.
That's very weird.
Yeah.
Well, I already have a Phillips screwdriver out. I don't know if that one's gonna work. So these ones are obviously gonna be for the wing. How do I know? Because there's 4 points here, okay? One. Oh wait, is there? There's only 2. Crap. Then that means there's 2 of these for the main wing.
Okay.
And this is an educated guess. And then there's 2 for the back. They're gonna pass through somehow. Okay, this screwdriver is too small. I'm gonna go up to a bigger one. This one says it's 5 millimeters, which of course that's not the way we measure Phillips screws. Okay, that went in just fine. Now this one, drop it down, get it started, and then go ahead and give her heck. Okay, now that is attached, I'm gonna go in here and just try to find my bind plug. Or my bind button rather. Okay, there it is. You guys hear it? Do you think they can hear it?
Yeah, I think they should be able to hear the click.
Okay, all right, there's a click. So that's our bind button. So this one here, just ignore that, pretend like it never happened, and nobody's gonna lose any sleep over it, I can tell you that. Not around here. We have seen our fair share of amazing P-51s, and we're hoping that this one is half as good as some of the ones we've seen because we've had such good luck. Like with the June Knight 1.2, amazing product. If you want something that's got retracts, the 1.2 meter June Knight in the P-51 is just really fantastic. And if you want a 1.5, gets a little squirrely on the ground, but E-flite has an offering that's blue and silver, and it's got big invasion stripes too. Oh shoot, oh dang it. The warning came off, so weird. Oh, and by the way, if you ever do have a scrape like this, that I didn't earn that scrape, somebody else earned it for me. First things first, because you're gonna eventually get there, okay? So if this doesn't take it off, there are other things you can do. And I think that's because Eli Field has an asphalt runway. So I'm guessing that's how they got that. Now for me, I fly off of concrete, so there's a good chance if I get a scrape in the same spot, it's gonna go away. So we might just wait on that. I don't know what size this is. I wish I could tell the people without taking it all apart. Is this a Phillips? Yep, this is Phillips. Color match is pretty poor here. Look at that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised.
That's really far off. So I'm gonna undo this real quick just to show you guys what the prop size is, just in case you are asking the question I am, which is, do I have one? Is it gonna be a common size? So I'm gonna pop this off. Why does it not wanna come off? Oh, there it goes. Just a long purchase on there. Okay, so this is an 8.7 by 7.5, one of the world's weirdest sizes. Turn on the light.
There it is.
Do you guys see that? So if you're brand new to the hobby, hold still. 8.7 by 7.5. Okay, go ahead and shut it off. That is a weird size. You also notice it's a 2-bladed prop, which is a little bit less cool looking than a 4-bladed prop, but I'll tell you what, your spinner is designed for 2 blades, and the KV of the motor is all designed for the load of 2 blades. Incidentally, if you put a 4-blade on, you're gonna tend to draw a little bit more juice, and that's just the way it is. So if you wanna go to a 4-blade, just be really careful about your pitch, okay? And you're gonna have to find a spinner that matches this curvature if you want it to look good. So I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm gonna be flying on 2 blades, and we'll see how it looks. Also, the exhaust ports are painted silver, so I don't know if you're into that sort of thing. That's no biggie. Let's talk about this. There is a magnet here that's screwed into a plastic retention portion of this lid. Plastic to plastic here, foam to foam here. Kind of strange, but then there's a plastic insert here that you can use to lift this. So you see what I'm talking about? Plastic embedded. Well, that paint's coming off of there, just the overspray. And same thing here, plastic in there. So that's gonna give you a good opportunity to have a good purchase. Also, kind of a poor match here on this color. That being said, it's not a deal breaker, but we point these things out on Brian Phillips RC. So if you're here for a puff piece, you're probably in the wrong place. But we love E-flite, so for whatever that's worth. All right, so back here on the tail, we're gonna go ahead and put this in. Obviously, this thing doesn't come off. Well, I mean, you could take it off, but you don't have to take it off. So this just slides through. And you can see right there, one of the nutserts there that's gonna receive all the way through. You see it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, right? So this is gonna slide in until it gets there, and then that little chunk on the back, it just kind of holds in place. And then there's 2 screws that drop down in here. I'm assuming it's these 2 screws that are from the main bag. Let's see what happens. Now, there are instructions that come with this plane, but sometimes the instructions are not needed. In this case, we're gonna go ahead and go with my intuition until we have a problem, and then we'll go ahead and get the instruction manual out if we need it, okay? So it is possible that that is not the right size, or I just didn't let it drop far enough down. Did you hear it drop?
It sounded like it dropped down.
I don't think it was dropped all the way.
It might not have been all the way.
It's not spinning,
Okay.
so that's usually a bad sign. There is a different one here, but it's longer.
That one long screw, but
Yep.
what else
I don't know.
would that be for?
So we're gonna drop this down. Oh, there it goes. That one's purchasing. You can definitely tell.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna flip this over. Camera crew is gonna watch just in case I miss it. Just let it go. No
Okay.
big deal. And I'm gonna grab the longer one for this tail. The longer one here, okay? So let's show you the longer one compared to the shorter one, or ones. See, longer,
Okay.
right? So I'm gonna drop it into this tail section. You remember the nutsert I was pointing out earlier? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's already purchasing.
Okay.
Yep, super easy build. Guys, that is about as simple as it gets. Now, just for grins and giggles, let's talk about how these landing gear are gonna go in. They are gonna be canted forward slightly. They slide in like this, and then they snap back, okay? So let's see, oh, easy, super easy. Don't have to worry about breaking them off. In fact, that's a lot easier than like the Ultra Micro that has removable landing gear that's similar. If you have removable landing gear that are hard to take off and you're afraid you're gonna break the actual landing gear mounts off, that can be a little disconcerting, especially to a beginner pilot, okay? So we're glad that's not the case here. Also, this thing needs to be mounted, meaning clicked on, okay? So I'm just gonna slip that on there, boom, done. Did it without tools. You can use a ball link tool if you want, but you're not gonna need it, okay? So the key is, to build this plane, you need a Phillips screwdriver, probably like a number 1.5 or number 1. Obviously, we don't size in millimeters, but the Chinese brands do. So this brand has a 5mm tip, so whatever that means. And then there's 3 additional screws here. I have no clue what they're for. It is possible that there was something else. Let's go ahead and look through the manual now that we have built the entire plane. You want to give them a quick perusing. We're going to need that screwdriver to do our binding here in a few minutes.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss something simple.
They're calling a Phillips number 2.
Oh, number
So if
2?
you're
As long
looking
as the head
for-
isn't big enough that it won't slide in.
Yep.
This does come with a preloaded setup file.
It's possible that you'll have to put your tail wheel in. Sometimes they
Slide
show it
it
in the
in.
manual and it's already in there.
Well, and sometimes we get it that way because we're getting an early sample.
We did
Oh, and
that.
they're also pointing this out. Make sure it snaps on and not past. So let's show the people a close-up of what we did. Obviously on ours, it snapped on. We didn't have any problems, but you see what I'm talking about right there? Just make sure it's snapped on and not past.
Oh,
If
yes.
you snap past, it's gonna be problematic. It'll
Right.
still work, but it's gonna give it too much slop, so you might have kind of a sloppy feel in the air.
Main landing gear. I'm not seeing anything that we missed. Nope, that's it.
No. So what the heck are these
So what are
screws
those for?
I don't understand. Unless that's spares or something.
But they're different sized.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is maybe they're spares for like one of these applications up here. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Guys, I don't know. They don't match with this. Hey, can you show the people what I'm doing? They don't match with any of these things. None of these things. They're all smaller on the plane, so I don't know if this was put in here by mistake.
And it doesn't show, there's not a diagram of what's included.
Okay, and then the other thing too is, did it show on the tail feathers when we put in that horizontal stab? Yeah, it shows the 22 and the 16.
Yes.
Okay, and then the wing goes on with 2 16. So those are the shorter ones, as we previously discussed. Okay, so we've got the thing put together in one piece. So now what do we need to do to get this thing flying? You might be saying that was the shortest build in Brian Phillips RC history, and you'd be correct. It's one of the shortest. That was super easy. You could legitimately buy this, take it to the field having never built it, and set it up at the field in minutes. Now, that also needs to be a consideration for you if you're gonna be flying this from grass or not. This does not look like it's gonna have a lot of clearance, but we're gonna see, because believe it or not, that clearance is actually better than a lot, but once you roll onto the mains, it's still got a pretty good amount of clearance. And this thing is light on its feet, goodness gracious. Like, it really is light. So we're gonna see how that does. That is a really nice scale line, gorgeous. And then I'm hoping it's not too springy, because the gear do feel wiggly, which is good. You want that on this size of plane. If it's all fixed and it's really stiff, it's not gonna be very easy to negotiate it on the ground, and it's gonna be really unforgiving on landings. Also, some of the competitive offerings that are in the smaller size class, I'm just thinking back to a 750 millimeter offering, the gear broke off every single time you landed. Exclusive. Like, you could have a perfect landing, gear broke off. So we'll see how this does. And as usual, you've already seen our maiden flights, because on Brian Phillips RC, we show that at the beginning. So in this case, our next move is to start the radio setup. Now, normally you would have to have a profile for this plane, but in our application, you don't necessarily have to have a profile if you don't want. Now, we don't typically do it this way, so we're not gonna do it today either. And that's because we think one of the biggest tools that you get from Brian Phillips RC is learning how to use this, one of your most expensive tools in your tool bag. That is your NX10 or NX8 or NX6 or NX7E, or maybe even up into the IX lineup. However, our instructions are typically gonna be on the NX lineup. If you're doing IXs, then you probably have a little bit more knowledge, okay? So start your transmitter. If you have hundreds of models, it'll take longer to start. We have hundreds. We're actually almost out of memory. So I'm gonna hit cancel and back. I'm gonna scroll down to add new model, and I'm gonna create an acro. Now, if you wanna do this thing where you skip through all the radio setup and you just wanna bring in from the receiver the actual preloaded setup file, then all you have to do is bind, and then it's gonna ask you this question at the beginning. So you can stop basically as soon as you're done creating. You can just walk right out to bind and do that, okay? Now, why do we not do that? Because we wanna teach you how to set up a model. I can set up a model in 2 or 3 minutes, like balls to the walls. It's not hard. It is something I can do in minutes.
I can set up a model.
She can set up a model, but I can start to finish set up a model in 2 or 3 minutes, no exaggerations. Now, it might take me an hour to share how to do that, but no joking, I can do it. And that's what we want you guys to be able to do in a mere, I mean, maybe on a brand new bind and fly, you're looking at a couple, 4 or 5 minutes, but on a plug and play model where you have to install your own receiver, it might take a little bit longer. So, all right, so let's talk about the battery loading. First of all, we don't trust this plane yet because it is still untrustworthy. We would normally make a profile, but since this is basically ailerons, elevator, rudder, and throttle, there are no retracts. It should be pretty basic. So I'm actually gonna go into model name. I'm gonna type in a name, and this is gonna be the P-51D Mustang 1.0 meter. So we'll come right back when we're done typing. Okay, so we've got P-51D Mustang 1.0 meter, and yes, put the size class, you're gonna need it because eventually you're gonna have another one. Aircraft type, you want a normal and normal. Keep in mind, if you ever added flaps, you could do like that. Or if you decided to separate the flaps, or ailerons rather, and then make flaperons out of them, this is gonna be challenging because there's only one plug that goes through that port. Okay, so keep in mind, it's not gonna be without effort because your quick plug is gonna be X-nayed pretty much immediately. Also, there were no LEDs on the wingtips. So obviously I didn't notice that at the time. So we're back to normal on the wing type and tail type. And we're gonna select an image from the standard image file just so it's easy to see. We should have a P51, there's P51. Okay, so now flight mode setup. This is something you can set up however you like. I'm gonna set it to switch D, okay? Then I'm gonna set up a spoken and flight mode that's gonna be listed here. So instead of flight mode 1, I'm gonna set up AS3X, which stands for artificial 3-axis stabilization. And so in order to do that, I'm just literally typing, so cancel, cancel, and that'll clear everything beyond where you are. So then I'm just gonna scroll this in, AS3X, and we'll come right back. Okay, so AS3X, and then we'll go down to about here, and we'll type, or we'll select that choice, which is gonna be the audio event. Now, there are ways to make some different custom settings on this. You can also do this as a template, which would save a lot of time, but I don't make templates because not everybody is going to have access to my templates, okay? Remember, the learning curve for this hobby is part of the reason why we exist, because people need help getting started. And so we're going to do just that. I am going to make an off setting. This may or may not be eligible on this particular model. Sometimes off is not a choice. We can always change our nomenclature later. And then of course I'm going to choose the word off. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why do you need to do this? This seems like such a waste of time. The first time somebody hands you a transmitter at the flying field, you will understand why I do this, because you will immediately say, how do I know if I'm in safe or not? And they'll just go to this like dumbfounded, I have no clue. And I always know immediately by flipping the switch that I know it's assigned to. Okay, so now this one's gonna be safe or sensor assisted flight envelope, which is also known as auto leveling in this application. So if you're brand new to flying RC and you're like, hey, this looks like maybe a good place to start, I'm not gonna even tell you it's a bad place or a good place to start until I've had a chance to fly it myself. But an AS3X equipped with safe P-51 is still gonna have P-factor issues in most cases, and it still has to be brought onto its mains to take off and land on its mains in most cases. So I would highly recommend you watch my maiden flight. Did I go way past it?
Nope, you're not there yet.
Okay.
Almost.
There it is. Okay, so now what happens is during normal flight mode, it'll be on the screen somewhere about here, and it's gonna call out the audio event each time automatically. But remember, these are both labels, both the spoken and the name that's printed on the screen. So then later we will make assignments as such. Also, if we would do thrust reverse, then I want that to be assigned to channel G. And so that would usually be like aux 7 or channel 7 rather. Is that right, by default? So if it's default, I'm gonna go ahead and set G to that because we know we're not doing flaps, so I don't need to have that switch assigned. Also, A is on channel 5, which is likely where safe is gonna automatically be assigned. So I can change that. I'm gonna inhibit this one because it's already D, we just used D. And then I'm gonna take D and I'm gonna assign it there, or I'm gonna click and go to flight mode. Whoops, I gotta highlight the channel 5. Scroll all the way over to inhibit, and one over is flight mode, see? So I'll just choose flight mode, which is gonna then be attached to switch D, okay? Now, these ones are the primary flight surfaces. They're already going to be NA'd, meaning that you can't change those values, okay? But you've got all these additional channels up here that don't get used. I'm gonna unconnect my levers or these sliders back here because I'm not gonna use those on this model and I don't wanna listen to the beeping, okay? So now I can Also pay attention to the fact that channel 8 is attached to my rotary knob, or I like to call it the R knob or the right knob, even though it's actually a rotary knob, okay? So we'll walk back out and we'll scroll down to, there's our regular plane. We're gonna first set up throttle cut. I'm gonna highlight inhibit, click on it, and then I'm gonna switch H. And then I'm gonna look down here and see that it is working because the -100 stays -100 until such a time as I push this away from my belly. Then it comes alive. See, it's -97, +97 or whatever. Okay, throttle cut's on. Okay, so then I can go down to timer, and I'm gonna set the timer to 5 minutes. Did they tell us how long to expect in the manual?
No, not anymore.
Oh, by the way, if you're wanting help setting up your transmitter, just find the one that closely matches yours. So NX in our case would be here. There's also an IX here and then a DX here. So we'll just kind of zoom out in case you wanna follow along. You can also follow the links in our video description below. At any point, if you wanna buy this plane and help support Brian Phillips RC, but you can find the manuals there electronically if you're looking for the latest and greatest. Like if they had an addendum in here, that will be included in the electronic manual in most cases, or there will be an addendum as well in the supporting documents. So if you ever wanna find a manual, and even if you're not trying to buy the plane, just follow the link, you can see it there. And then if you buy something later, then we would, be commissioned on these things. So that's how we fund this channel, in case you guys didn't know that. When you buy planes, we make small commissions, but I still don't want to talk you into something that's wrong for you. So if this is the right plane for you and you want to help support Brian Phillips RC, you can do that by just following the link, buying this plane. You'll help support us financially. Or if you don't want to buy that plane, or if you don't want to buy this transmitter or battery that we use, in this case, this is 2200 4S, also be eligible all the way as low as 3S 1300 or 3S
2200.
2200.
Yeah.
So you could do that too. And then anywhere in between. So they're just recommending between 1300 and 2200. So our links for the batteries are probably going to go something like this: 1300 3S, 2200 3S, and 2200 4S, because I don't know if they even have an offering in Smart that would be 1300 4S. So it's kind of a weird size class. But that being said, anytime you buy any of those things from the links, we'll have links down below. And yes, if you follow the link for the airplane and then you buy the other stuff, we'll commission on that stuff too.
And you can also follow the link if you need to buy a spare prop or something like that, if you're looking for parts or whatever.
Yeah, parts from a crash, or if you like stab your plane with like a screwdriver or something.
Yeah, you need a new wing.
Fill the wing hole.
Yeah.
Or the manual, like we said.
Yeah.
Also, there's the promotional content that E-flite's put together, which they do a nice job on their stuff too. You might want to put that up against what we say and see whose you can trust more. Not that there's anything inherently untrustworthy about it, but you got to remember that's the company talking about their thing. We are just reviewing it hypothetically from a third-party perspective. But as you can see, we are obsessively, relentlessly at your service here on Brian Phillips RC, bringing you the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. So at the end of the day, we can get you out of the chair and into the air, because at the end of the day, we want you flying just like we are, not just watching and living vicariously through YouTube, Al.
Al flies.
I know.
Watches a lot of YouTube too.
Yes, that's true. So, and if you get a personal call out on Brian Phillips RC, you get the gold star for the day, Al. And there's so many others amazing people that have followed us over the years. So anyway, 4 other ways to help support us. Smash the like button, obviously. Watch the videos. Click the bell for notifications when you subscribe. But then there's Patreon for monthly support, YouTube super thanks for one-time donations, YouTube members, and then of course PayPal. Any of those are always appreciated, but at the end of the day, we'd rather you just buy an amazing plane, whether it's this one or that one or another one. And even if it's a competitive offering to this, head over to brianphillipsrc.com or bprc.me, and you can look by size, by type, or by manufacturer, affiliate, partner relationship, and you can do direct comparisons. Because at the end of the day, we're here to help you guys spread your RC dollars just as far as possible and keep from living in the doghouse. All right, so getting back to the timers. So 5 minutes, this didn't say anything about timing. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So if you look at this, they're recommending, yeah, these are the different battery sizes, as you can see, and I don't see anything about time. They used to do that on a pretty routine basis, but let's just go ahead and go with 5 minutes for now. Anything over 25%, we want it to be active for the 1 out timer. And if you guys hear a beep, don't worry, it's just my dinner. I do eat, I know it's hard to believe. At 1 minute, I want a voice call out. 20 seconds, I want nothing. At 10 seconds, I want voice, voice?
Yes.
Yes, voice, and then tone and vibrate at expiration with the tone every minute thereafter. Now I can walk out of there and we should be ready to bind. And there's a lot less to do on this plane because it is a simple plane. Now, some of you are probably thinking, flaps, LEDs, retracts, where are they, Brian? Four-bladed prop, where are they, Brian? They're on the 1.2 meter. And I'm gonna just tell you this right now. If you guys are thinking, scratching your head thinking, but the 1.2 is awesome. Yeah, we agree. Okay, so slam this thing in here. We got some Velcro straps. Looks like they're still high quality, but it's a new strap style. I haven't seen this style before. I'm gonna just hook it to itself barely. This battery is gonna be a pretty tight squeeze in here. Now, one thing we like to do in our battery trays, this is something we always do, and we make kind of a big thing of it because it is so dang easy to do, and it helps you to find success, and it's cheap, and it's effective, and it's like a very, very obvious way to keep your batteries still without the pesky addition of Velcro. You can put Velcro on your packs if you're into that sort of thing, but it's not gonna do you much good on this particular plane. But because this is at an angle and you've got to slide your battery in, you don't want it to slide out, that'd be super annoying. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just cut a little bit of this. This is shelf liner. Shelf liner, you can get the stuff that has holes in it or you can get this kind. And all it's gonna do is just make this thing not slip as easy, okay? See how easy it slides, okay? Put it on there with enough pressure and it stays and does not slip. This stuff costs like 10, 12 bucks for a roll that's gonna last you for, I don't know, probably like 6 months worth of planes.
I was gonna say, we're on like our second roll. Yeah.
This is the roll that I should have used up before I started this. But this stuff lets the glue through when you heat up a pack. So like this plane probably fine, but if you get into like an EDF jet that's got like a, you know, a 90 millimeter EDF or twin 70s or something like that, where you're really gonna heat up the pack, it tends to seep through those gaps and it makes just an absolute mess of your battery. And speaking of messes, foam to foam. It's one of my favorite products. We also use China glue, which is white. It's just like this, but China. This stuff is made in Europe, so it warns you about things like this. It's good to be warned. Obviously, you need a warning. Otherwise, you might try to eat it. But if you use this stuff, it works good. So down here, you're gonna see there's certain areas where you can get away with putting an adhesive. This stuff is very clear. I'm just gonna do a little bit right there on top of the FCC warning because I could care less what they have to say about any of this crap. But you know what's funny? You guys may not have realized this, but when an American company makes something in America, they have to follow many, many stupid rules.
Yes.
So if you're about to say, where's the LEDs? Where's the flaps? They trigger nerves. If you're about to say that, just remember, there are easier ways to make a buck in this world, and I'm very happy that some companies are still crazy enough to make fixed wing RC aircraft instead of doing something much easier like collecting my trash to make money. Okay? So just remember that. Now I stuck that down there and you're like, yeah, but that thing's just gonna slip around like the glue's not cured yet. Yeah, but watch this, watch this, watch this. Pull it up, push it down, pull it up, push it down. Pull it out, there's not even that much glue on there, okay? You can just let that tack up for just about a minute and it will stick in there. Probably won't come out if you wanted it to. You'll have to rip it out in multiple pieces. Maybe not quite that bad. But there is a trick. If you need to get that stuff off and you're having trouble, use Kicker for CA and it will actually make it come out. Now we're getting to the point now where that's starting to really tack up. You see that? Mm-hmm. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be huge. Okay, so now what do we know about batteries that are hard to load, camera crew?
If the battery is hard to load, you won't fly.
You won't fly it as much. Now, as much. Or you have to be more desperate to fly it. So just keep in mind, if you're brand new to the hobby, you're gonna tend to be a little bit more desperate to fly planes than guys like me that have 400 other amazing choices, okay? And I say that not facetiously, not trying to be a smart aleck, but the truth is, when you're brand new to the hobby, you got limited budget, you're not always gonna go after some crazy 6S 1.5 meter plane, which by the way, if you didn't understand this, guys, if you're brand new to the hobby, or you're just returning to the hobby, and you've forgotten just how much bigger a 1.5 meter plane is than this plane is like less than half the size of a 1.5.
Yeah.
But no, Brian, that's only 1.5 compared to 1. It's a third bigger. No, it's not. It's like twice as big, okay? This plane is a 1 meter. This plane behind it is a 1.5, and it's not even the same plane, guys. I'm not just talking about one dimension. Everything gets bigger.
Yep.
So as a result, a 1.5 meter plane. The wing is like as big as this thing, okay? One wing, and there's two of them.
Yeah.
Both a left and a right. I know it's hard to believe. All right, so getting back to the point. We bring you truth on Brian Phillips RC so that you can make good decisions. We don't want to make up your mind for you. We want you to help make up your own mind, and in a way that's going to help direct you into a good choice. Because at the end of the day, we want success for all of our viewers, and we're going to help bring that by teaching you what we know. Okay, now you're probably thinking to yourself, but Brian, your hand is right in front of the prop. If in doubt, this is the time where you take out that Phillips screw and you pull this off, and then you undo the nut and you take the prop and you lay it on the side. I have done a number of planes, probably 1,000. I have cut myself one time. It was with an ultra micro, and I had 2 receivers bound to it, and I was doing tons of crazy crap, and I was also trying to rearm ESCs, so I had the throttle intentionally high, and it was an ultra micro. I was fortunate to not be injured that bad. It gave me a small cut, okay? Like barely anything, it was like a paper cut. This would probably hurt you a little bit, but some of these planes would darn near put you in the hospital or put you in the hospital. So just be careful. There's 2 things safety-wise that you really need to worry about on planes. That's batteries, and if you get smart batteries, you're gonna have a battery management system that's gonna keep you as safe as you can be, basically right now with lipos. And then 2 is props, okay? If you get safe, if you improve your safety odds by taking the prop off, I'm not gonna take the prop off, but I am gonna protect my body by securing the plane and working around it so that if it were to start spinning until I trust the plane, I'm gonna be safe, okay? So I've got ways of doing this, okay? I'm gonna plug this in. Now this is not gonna immediately start, hopefully, but if something malfunctioned, it possibly could. Okay, so plugged in. Till I trust the plane, I'm gonna let it dance. It's not gonna be bound, so it's not gonna do anything. Right now that receiver is flashing and this motor is not starting. So that's good enough for us for the moment until we have a chance to get everything closed up, which we're gonna do next. So I'm gonna put this cover back on, goes on very easy. And you'll notice that I'm going to keep the prop away from my hand. And camera crew sees on the screen, it says bind, okay? So I'm gonna just go like this. There we go, I'm in the hole. There it is, where is it? Oops. Some of you guys are probably cringing as you watch me do this. I'm cringing watching myself do it. Camera crew's like, why didn't you just use the bind plug?
Yes, yes. You had it earlier.
I know I had it earlier, but now I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong. Okay, so I found the hole, I pressed it. Now this should be in bind mode. So I'm gonna put the plane back down. I'm gonna pick up my transmitter so I can secure the plane. I'm gonna click, I'm gonna go to bind. So I got it. You hear the arming? One set of dances. Okay, so now we have to wait for things to start. It's auto configuring right now. Okay, so this is where it asks you, load the contents of the smart. Nope, I'm gonna skip. Confirm, okay? So now we're gonna wait. Elevator, rudder, no ailerons. Okay, why are there no ailerons, do you think?
Because that plug didn't get seated would be my guess.
That would be my guess too. So obviously we don't have any ailerons yet. Throttle cut is on. I'm gonna test the throttle, okay? Now I'm gonna give throttle. Okay, so that's working.
Wow.
Throttle cut's on. Now I'm gonna go scroll all the way over. And it looks like we don't have the entry point for the thrust reverse set up, okay? So I'm gonna quickly test this. Throttle cut's off, a little bit of forward thrust. And I already have G attached to auxiliary 3, or excuse me, auxiliary 2 would be
Channel 8.
channel 8. No, channel 8's
channel
here.
7.
Channel 7 is what we want.
Yep.
That's usually the default setting. You can change it. It can go from 5 to 9. Also, throttle cut is on. I'm gonna see if safe changes our status. Yep, I definitely don't hear it. Okay, so now we have to go into fix what the heck is wrong mode. Also, I just realized we can now trust the throttle. So let's go ahead and set up dual rates in Expo right now.
Okay.
And you're probably thinking to yourself, but the ailerons don't work, Ryan. Why don't you worry about that after you get the ailerons working? Because I have a reason for this. Okay, rates and expo. I'm gonna set it to switch F. I wanna set 5%, then 10%. I mean, I already have like infinite expo right now on ailerons because it's not working. Okay, so I'm gonna go to 20 and then I'm gonna drop this back down to 90. Okay, there we go. So there's our neutral setting. We'll have about double and then we'll have about half, okay? And that's what we like to do. So we have a starting point that's gonna get us back to the ground if we have a problem. So we're gonna do 5%, then 10%, and then 20%. Then dropping the rate down. This is gonna be a deviation from what the manual suggests, just so you guys know. And the only time we really worry about that is when we're talking about, oh, dang it. So we're gonna go to 10%. The only time we worry about that is on like VTOLs and things like that. Or anything that has like a specialized flight controller, like the F-14, for instance. Okay. All right, so now we start in the middle. Okay, so now let's figure out what the heck is going on. Let's go to monitor mode first. Monitor mode, we can see that the ailerons are supposed to be working. The elevator is working in the correct direction. We have good yaw control and our throttle cut's working because as you can see, nothing happens. So that's good. All right, so our next move needs to be, let's figure out what the heck is going on with our plug. Now, my fear is, maybe your wonderful host has decided to stab his cable like an idiot. And if that's the case, then I will let you know that I did that. I'm kind of hoping that's not the case, but I'm just thinking through what are the possible recourses of what I've done here, and that could be it. So we're gonna find out if that bind idea was such a great idea here in just a second. But I also have no idea why this wire would go back there at all. It should be right here. So I'm not actually thinking that that's what's happened. Okay, now listen carefully. It's gonna snap to life as soon as I make connection, okay? So also let's just look, we didn't cut any cable. The cables are not unplugged, okay? So as you can see, there's our bind plug that's, you know, supposed to allow people to do this. Everything is definitely plugged in, okay? So now I can see this wire here, just for grins and giggles, so we can show the people I don't actually need my bind plug. So I can go, is that the bind plug? Yeah, that's the bind plug. So watch this, guys. Camera crew, hold this please, right there, just so it stays up. I'm gonna go ahead and unplug this right now. I'm gonna unplug that, and then let's stick this into the port, which happens to be the first port. Okay. So now that that's plugged in, let this down a little bit. You can let go. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know if I have enough penetration with that. Definitely had it the right way. This extension cord might not work. Yeah, this thing's got, it doesn't have enough deep of a penetration. Okay. So we'll have to see if this is the problem. I was just gonna use that as a test. So I'm gonna go back to this, and first things first, I've got that plugged in now.
Okay.
You know what?
What?
This is the one that goes to the ailerons. That was the ESC because it just rearmed the thing. This is the ailerons right here, okay? So how do I know? Because I'm guessing with an educated guess, okay? I'm gonna stick this in here, okay? Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna move the ailerons. I'm just gonna move any surface over to the ailerons except for the ESC because I don't wanna get cut, okay? Okay, so now either the elevator or the rudder is gonna move when I move the ailerons. Port's alive, so that's good.
Okay, good.
So then the second test I'm gonna do, this is Diagnostics 101, split the circuit in half. Now I'm gonna disconnect that. I'm gonna take and run this extension cord from this thing now, whichever direction that needs to go. I do not know which way it's keyed. That's the way it goes. I'm gonna plug this thing back in, back here, to the aileron port with the brown going back. Okay. So here on Brian Phillips RC, we like to teach you things that are useful in your real life and not necessarily just always have a perfect experience. Perfect experiences are for La La Land, not for RC World. Okay, brown is down. Now watch this. This is gonna test our port. Ailerons are gonna move the elevator. Yep, and the elevator is now disconnected. So as you can see, the rudder is working and the elevator is now being controlled, pay attention, by this. Okay, so that means the ailerons are now controlling the the elevator through this cable. So we have now tested this media, we've tested this connector, we've tested that port, and we have confirmed that it's all good. So that means we didn't get a proper seat on the wing, which means that we either have a problem going from this wing out, which you can see right there, 2 wires jumping back in there. There is nothing to hit here, okay? So just drop my screws and you can see everything looks kosher there. Just one Y cable that goes back to this. Should be no problemo. Okay. So I'm gonna reseat this again and just see if I can get lucky, and maybe I just didn't get it lined up right. I didn't hear anything spring to life. I don't hear anything moving.
Oh.
Okay, so we're gonna pause for just a second. XBC battery checker and another size battery. This is a 3S 1300 milliamp hour. So we're gonna plug that in. Okay, so we're just gonna peel this wing off and we're gonna test this wing, okay? Why are we testing this wing? I wanna see if the ailerons work, okay? So I'm gonna plug this in, negative goes away from me. It's not gonna plug into that. I just wonder if that thing is not protruding enough. Is that thing like busted out or something? Because you remember how I had trouble that first time I plugged it in? Like it didn't get lined up right?
Like it's not.
I'm gonna pull this up and see if maybe it's just not sticking out far enough.
Okay.
So I took those 2 screws there. Now I'm lifting this up. Ha! That's supposed to be further up. You see that? You see what happened?
Yep.
There's a snap. That's the problem, guys. That, my dears, is the problem. Okay, so now that's in the snap position. Oh, and by the way, if you wanted to split these apart and do, say like a Y cable, instead of a Y cable, you could cut one of those, put an extension cord, and then you could do your flaperons, no problemo. But now, since I've got this all the way to the point of testing it, brown is away from me. I'm gonna plug this in, and then I'm gonna plug this in, negative is away from me. Then I'm gonna click. I'm gonna scroll down to servo test. Okay, click, 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 okay. Very good. Double click. The beauty of a test. Okay, click it to the center, unplug it. We don't need this cable anymore. We can put that away in our bag of goodies to be used on another project. So now I'm just gonna take my screwdriver very gently and I'm gonna coax this wire down into the opening. Now, I'm not sure when that happened. It's probably when I first tried to put the wing in and I must not have got proper alignment, but now you know how to fix it. If yours is not penetrating, you'll know what to do. So guys, if I did that wrong, I apologize. If this is a bad design, I don't really know how to distinguish between those two. I think it was probably something I did.
Well, you should be able to see the pins on the back side where the pins come through. You couldn't even see that part before. So it's a pretty obvious difference now.
Okay, so, and I didn't pay close enough attention, to be honest. And so now you know how to fix that problem. So if your wing doesn't work, you'll know what's going on. So now we're gonna try this again for like the 47th time. Okay. Push it back. I just can't tell if I'm gonna get purchase. I'm gonna pick it up just so I can feel it. It's definitely lined up. There it goes. Oh, it's gotta be in now. Gotta be in. Gotta be in. Oh yeah! Okay, so we have elevator, we have rudder, we have all the surfaces working together. So now we just have to get the screws that we dropped, which is why we paused, and put those back in. And guys, we have built this plane like twice now, and it's still a short build for Brian Phillips RC. If you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC, welcome to Brian Phillips RC. We're gonna teach you not only how to do it, but when something needs undone and redone, we'll teach you how to do that too. So, because we all know that Brian Phillips RC is not going to cover up for manufacturers that have gaffes or when Brian Phillips has gaffes. Truth is, we love this hobby and we know that a lot of times what you need is just to help over the bump, okay? Over the hump. And we're going to help you have that and have success. Now, let's talk about the smart receiver and whether or not thrust reverse is capable. First of all, thrust reverse would be on another channel, but normally you scroll way over here and you would see a menu that lets you in. We aren't seeing that, okay? So let's just assume that because this has an avian light ESC, you're not gonna have eligibility to use that feature. However, if you wanna buy this thing, you can pretty much turn it on, okay? This would be a Spectrum ESC Programmer V2. You should be able to hook up to it. Not 100% sure if we can do that on this plane. Should we take the wing off again for the 4th time?
Yeah, weren't you trying to avoid that by poking holes in your plane? Okay, but usually we still have an avian menu, right?
No, not always.
Necessarily? Okay.
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Okay.
But I know what you're saying, Cam Crew. And despite you being my wife, you're probably not correct.
We'll see.
I bet it'll work. So guys, what we're doing next is we're checking to see if thrust reverse is capable on the ESC. If you want it, you've got it. If you don't, then don't worry about the step. You don't have to do this. Thrust reverse is a feature that you may not want. If you're brand new to the hobby, you may not have the capability of doing it because it does take a little bit of skill to deploy it. If you fly off of short strips like I do, you might really want it. Okay, so how do you use this stinking thing, okay? I don't know. You gotta hook it up. So how do you hook this thing up? Well, there's a couple of different ways it works. Sometimes it works easy, sometimes it doesn't, okay? You have to unplug it from the receiver, boom. Then you have to plug this thing in here. You got the negative going towards your belly. Okay, so you plug it in and you see if you can go in. So let's go edit, connecting ESC. It's gonna try to connect the ESC, but you're gonna notice that there's not, that programming cable is usually a separate programming cable, okay? And you'll notice that we don't have that separate programming cable. See?
Right.
Okay, the little yellow one, okay? So just be mindful that there's still technically power going to this right now. Okay, so I'm gonna let this fall down. I'm gonna go ahead and open this carefully and just double check by visually inspecting. Yep, can't tell because it's covered up by everything I put in there for shelf liner. So that means that there is a low probability of anybody being able to get to that. Now that doesn't mean that you can't swap out the ESC, and if you do swap out the ESC, you're probably gonna be doing it from the front. So I'm just gonna go with, there isn't a way to do it on this particular ESC because we can't connect to the ESC. See this? There's no response. Now we've seen that before. You can also use an external battery, and that is another thing we can try first before we continue, and that would be to unplug the ESC from power, which is another way you can do this sometimes. Okay, so we unplug it from a battery. We're gonna go ahead and take out the battery now and just double check that we don't see something we missed earlier maybe. And the only reason we answer this question is because like I probably don't really care on this plane, but there are people that will care, and we do this, and then when they ask in the comments, like in 3 years and I've totally forgotten, then we can say, did you watch the video?
Right.
Because we don't remember either. Okay, so now you can see this is where the ESC is, okay? You see the ESC down there, camera crew? I see some leads, and those leads are the leads that go directly to the motor. And then behind the leads, you can see some Velcro, and then you can see the end where the battery would come out. And I told you earlier that this would rip apart the material. If you did, yep, I was correct. Look, there, now you can see, there's only one wire coming out of there, okay? So I'm gonna reach back here, I'm gonna pull that ESC back to where it was, and now we have learned what we needed to learn, which is there is no programming cable. But we're gonna try one more good college try to get this thing hooked up for thrust reverse, and if we fail, then you guys will not have to fail as well. Okay, so now we're gonna plug this in. Obviously, since there's no power, we need to energize it somehow. How do you energize something like this if you don't have the battery plugged in? Well, there's a couple of different ways, but this is the way I'm gonna do it this time. I'm gonna hook up the XPC battery checker. This is probably not gonna work, full disclosure. So don't be surprised when it doesn't work. And then we're gonna use a cable like this, which is just a male to male or female to female in this case. I'm gonna plug it into the XPC battery checker with the correct polarity. And then I'm gonna use the correct polarity to plug into this device. And it looks like negative is toward us. And just plug it in like that. And then watch this, when I go to servo test, guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna come alive. Boom, look at that. Then, now that this is alive, we can see if it'll let us in, which it won't. But I'm just gonna show you so that you can answer your own question. Connecting ESC, select, yeah, reset, save. Yeah, see, it's not gonna do it, okay? So, now that we have extinguished all efforts, you don't have to do it, okay? So now, you're probably wondering to yourself, why don't you do that off camera, Brian? And then we can just know the answer to that said question. That is the question for the ages on Brian Phillips RC. Why didn't I figure that out before I shared that nonsense? Because all of this nonsense is gonna teach you guys how to have the best possible experience. And truth is, there's a lot of steps you have to learn how to do when you fly RC. And if you're hoping for a super easy, happy-go-lucky, never have difficulties hobby, you're probably in for a long ride, okay?
Yeah.
And it's a ride to failure, okay? So at the end of the day here on Brian Phillips RC, we want to be very encouraging to those that are trying to get into the hobby, but we also want to teach you how to comply with stupid rules like that.
Oh, yeah.
So if you guys want to put a remote ID module in there, there's two different choices here. Of course, this is the Sky module. It's going to give you extra GPS and like lost plane help if you crash and there's still power being applied. Sometimes that stuff comes unplugged, admittedly, when you get in a bad accident. But this will help you be compliant because this is not going to be sub 250. If you want to fly it at your local field and it's a FRIA, no big deal. You're totally legal. If you want to fly it at your park like you used to, this is a park flyer, okay? A lot of people are going to fly at parks. The people that have Karens that live around, do this. You can do it legal. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't even need to plug this into your plane if you don't want. You can plug it into your own provided battery and you can energize it that way. You can use one of these provided cables. We have a video about this. If you want to hear how we really feel about it, you can watch that video. But I'm not a big nanny state supporter. And so, there you have it. Well, I don't really care if you follow the rules.
No.
We just want you to know that there is a mechanism by which you can choose to follow the rules.
The other reason that we go through the process is because if we don't, somebody will be like, well, didn't you use this thing or that thing or whatever?
The answer is generically yes. We try all the things that we can try until we find complete and utter failure.
And it might help you learn to do problem solving on your own on another plane.
Exactly. That's right. So guys, at the end of the day, what we do here on Brian Phillips RC is we basically go back to the beginning when we didn't know what we were doing, and we try to remember what it would have been like if I was trying to set up this plane. And I mean, I know you guys are super excited for this plane. If this is your second or third plane, good Lord. If this is your second or third plane, you're not comparing it to 400 other planes.
Right.
You're gonna be like, this is the best plane I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I know the feeling because I've been there, done that, and I love it, and it's a great experience. Do not poo-poo the weight and value of the beginning experience. When you first get into RC, it is something else. Every time you see a flag that's, down, when you see a limp flag, it makes you want to quit your job and go fly. So it's painful for guys like me. Because I remember when I was first flying, I had a Sport Cub S UMX, and I went through like 14 motors on that thing because it had a little brush motor, and I just kept killing them over and over and over again. I mean, I was flying like hundreds of flights a week. I remember I'd go on vacation and I would spend like all day flying, like all day, the same plane. And I was totally satisfied with it. Now, obviously I told my wife I would just need 2 planes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is just our living room, guys. We also have 2 shipping containers.
And a basement.
Probably, well, we would normally have about 18 to 2,000 square feet downstairs full of planes. And we're actually getting ready to build a hangar that's gonna be 60 by 100. To store our airplanes. And that's not just the small ones, that'll be the big ones too. The real
Do you just need 2 of those too?
Maybe, if I can have them. But at the end of the day, we love this hobby, we love doing it, and we're gonna bring you guys the latest and greatest as much and as capable as we are. We're gonna share as much as we can because we know how hard it is when you're first beginning at the hobby. And there is a steep learning curve, make no mistake. If you want an easy hobby, it's the wrong hobby for you. but the truth is it's worth it, okay? And so that's why I say we wanna be truthful, and we say the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God, mostly as a gimmick, but at the end of the day, we want you guys to be happy. We want you guys to have a good experience. And a part of that is being a realist to a certain extent. I mean, you got to realize you're going to have to learn to do this. It is not something that's handed to you, even with Safe and AS3X, which are huge help aids. There's never been an easier time in the history of time to learn to fly RC than right now. So don't wait 6 months. Don't wait a year. Don't wait 2 years. I mean, if you got a brand new baby and you got to take care of it and stuff like that, we get it. Everybody goes through life cycles. We have 4 kids. We get it. And there are going to be periods of time where it just doesn't make sense for you to fly. We want to get you back as quick as we can, okay? All right, one dance. And we're not done yet with the radio setup, okay? We just took a little detour there. That's what happens on Brian Phillips RC. You may have figured that out. If you're brand new to the channel, welcome. We're not going to leave you high and dry.
We might take a detour to check on your dinner.
No, you'll be fine. Okay, so we're going to turn this plane around. Why? Because the AS3X is activated, but not active because we haven't given it throttle yet. It doesn't go active until we give throttle. Elevator up, elevator down. Roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. Okay, so now lock the sticks. Gear switch doesn't do anything because I deactivated it.
Okay.
But that doesn't do anything either because we haven't turned it on yet, guys. So in order to turn it on, take it to dinner, give it some roses. I'm kidding. We're just gonna click and we're gonna go down to forward programming, okay? Let it connect. I'm gonna activate my advanced menus, gyro settings. By the way, if you wanna set it up from scratch, you can go into factory reset right there, okay? But in this case, we're gonna go to gyro system. We're gonna AS3X settings, AS3X gains. See how it says 2 and it doesn't change? It doesn't change when you flip the switches, okay? That's because we haven't told it where that setting is, okay? So save select, save select. We want to turn it on. Where do we want that to be? It says aux 2. Gear. Okay. So now we're on gear, but we could also use one of the upper channels so we don't use channel 5. Channel 5 could be used for something else later. Not that you really need it because everything is wired up the way it is. It'd be super easy to put flaperons on this plane because all you have to do is split that Y cable inside the wing, okay? So now Safe is currently on, but we want it to be on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk all the way out of my settings. I'm gonna go to servo setup, and I'm gonna go travel, highlight it, go over to reverse, and we're just gonna reverse gear, okay? So now when I hold the stick down, lots of play, less play. That's the first telltale sign that you're in or out of Safe. The second telltale sign is to flip the plane on its back and look at the ailerons. It's trying to find the quickest route to level, okay? Now look at the elevator. Elevator is trying to find the quickest route to level. Look at the elevator. It's trying to find very little deflection, but it's gonna find the quickest rate or the quickest route to level because auto leveling demands that the plane gets back to that home neutral position, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and move the plane back to a position so it's easy for you to see what's going on. Elevator up, elevator down. And you'll notice right now it's even trying to lift the tail to make it level. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so that's with Safe on. Now, Safe off, we haven't actually assigned an off condition. And AS3X, I don't hear anything because we haven't given throttle. Throttle cuts off, a little bit of throttle, over 25% to be exact, throttle cuts on. I can hear it working now. I hope you guys can too. And the other thing is, if you want to check the direction of travel, then all you have to do is pick up your plane, throttle cuts on, and move the surface, and I'm looking at the rudder. Okay, now I'm looking at the elevator. Now I'm looking at the ailerons. A little hard to see on the ailerons. I'm gonna show you my first person view. Okay, so look at the cat. See the rudder? When I spin this way, it resists. When I spin the other way, it resists. I'm spinning pretty quick. As you can see, it gets a little bit more, and so on and so forth. Now, elevator, same thing. Elevator up, elevator down, elevator up, elevator down, okay? Now, ailerons, this is gonna be hard to see. Up, down, okay? Same thing here, up, down. Now, if you can't see, take your hand, lay it on there. I want this to go up when I lift the wing, up. Now, I want it to go down when I lower, down. The more aggressive the movement, the quicker it's gonna respond. Same thing here, up, down, left, right. So you can feel it if you can't see it. And there's also another trick, and I'm gonna show you that trick now, because we aren't totally done with our safe setup, but we've at least got it started. Now remember, this is AS3X Plus, there's a little bit extra to it. Clear the timer. Go back into forward programming. Gyro settings, AS3X settings, AS3X gains. Oh wow, look, it says mode 3, mode 2, mode 1. So safe doesn't allow you to play with that. But in the off setting, this still has gains. So obviously we have something wrong. So now I'm gonna go to save select. Now watch this, AS3X, on, off. Now it's off. Now safe is off. Ironically, the off mode is in the safe menu because you can see flight mode 1, flight mode 2, and flight mode 3. Pretty cool, but I wish they'd put our nomenclature there, okay? So walking out, now I'm gonna go back to AS3X settings, AS3X gains. Now watch this. There's our settings, off. See? Pretty cool, huh? So now AS3X is active, unless you want it off. I don't know why you'd want it off, but a lot of people, especially old timers that come to this hobby and they have the skills to fly, but they don't want the AS3X stabilization, in a bind and fly, you can do it now. You couldn't do that as recently as a couple of years ago, okay? Without resetting the factory resets or getting something without. However, I'm gonna just say this right now. AS3X makes the planes fly better. If you think there's something wrong with the stabilizer, then don't get on an aircraft ever, because they all have some sort of stabilization. Well, not all of them, but the old ones. Pretty much any modern aircraft has some sort of stabilization. So this is really cool. It's a good feature. It's gonna help that plane look more realistic and fly like it's a bigger plane. And by the way, if you're flying a huge plane, you probably don't need stabilization. It's a pretty small plane still, okay? It's gonna make a big difference. It's gonna feel better. It's gonna be more responsive. And on windier days, it's gonna be easier to fly, okay? I suggest you use it. You don't have to. You can always turn it off. Just follow our instructions. We'll help you get it there. Okay, so now you'll notice that these are fixed values, 16, 46, and 69. That is the default value that was already in here. The priority in this mode is 140, then off, and then safe is setting that value. Whoops. Then I'm gonna hit back, and I'm gonna go to stop lock release rate, which is 35 by default. We're not gonna mess with that. Then off, and then off, okay? So stop lock is basically when, and I don't know exactly how this works yet, but when you overcorrect and it shoots past, you'll see the plane will sometimes come to an abrupt stop and then wiggle. That stop loss helps to stop that, okay? But the higher the value, the lower the value, I still haven't quite connected the dots. I've just been on factory settings because I haven't played with it, okay? So we're gonna leave it on factory settings. And then if you go to next, you can see the stop loss release rate is 55, 55, 75, and then go back, stop lock rate, okay? Stop lock release rate. And then you hit back to get back, okay? Now you can also go to the safe select and see all that, and then you go to other settings, and you'll notice there's nowhere to set your gains, okay? So if you want gains, you can do a factory reset, and you could set this up like a plug and fly, and you can do all the features you want, with the exception of, in our case, thrust reverse, because thrust reverse, of course, is managed by the Avian ESC. In this case, this is an Avian ESC. It says smart, so I'm surprised we don't have that. I'm actually gonna do one more quick test just to see if it pops up. If you ever have a plane and you're trying to get into that safe menu, you have to scroll all the way to the right. And you guys also see this sweet thing right here. We have pack telemetry that shows our percentage basis of unspent battery, which is so nice, okay? Now, the other thing too is if you're ever trying to get into the menu, when you scroll over to the right, it's gonna say like, you know, up elevator and left aileron, and then it's gonna say step 2, up elevator, right aileron, low throttle, okay? So you just like hold this down and over, and then you hold this down and over, and it enters the menu structure, okay? Then you use this stick to move through a serial feedback, and then you use this and that to make your decision to change the mode, and then down all the way through, and then save with exit or exit without save.
And
it's a pretty safe setup.
This will say AV and ESC here at the top if you have that.
It's got feedback on the screen. You'll be able to read right through the setup. But given the circumstances, I'm just gonna go ahead and power cycle one more time just to make sure we didn't miss it. I don't think we did. Okay. So power cycle is happening now. Okay. Right, so once it cycles, okay, 2 dances. Okay, so there's 2 dances, so that means safe is on. Not necessarily activated like this, but safe is on in this plane. Okay. Got tons of telemetry data. Okay, so now I'm gonna go down to telemetry. I don't see it anywhere. Where is telemetry? There it is. Auto config, we'll just do this one more time. You go up just a hair. No, out, sorry, there you go. That glares, got me nervous. So we're just doing this again. It did it earlier, but I'm wondering if maybe I interrupted it. See, it says smart battery. So if you click into smart battery, you can see the audio events. So I do not want a low voltage warning at the beginning. At startup, I don't want overcharge, and I don't want imbalance. I want none of that, okay? But smart ESC, I do want voice. Okay, and then status reports. This is where you would set your poles for your motor. Did they mention that in the manual?
I did not see it.
Because that pole setting will help set the RPMs on the motor. Sometimes it says it on this right here. And I don't see anything on there, does it?
I didn't.
14 pole, right there. Go closer so they can see that. See how it says 14 poles? Mm-hmm. If you guys don't know what 14 poles means, it means that I believe it's the number of unique zones on the brushless motor. I could be mistaken. Please let me know if I'm wrong. Okay, so poles, 14, boom. So now, yeah, I don't see anything else. So I'm just gonna walk out. I was just making sure I didn't see anything, because you do see the smart. You do see the smart thing.
But it's always that very last menu when you scroll.
So now, when we give throttle, just for grins, throttle cuts on. I'm gonna tuck everything in real quick and show you guys what I'm talking about. Now with that 14 poles in there, we need to check CG next, and then we're pretty much done.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So throttle cut is off. I'm gonna go back to this telemetry screen. You wanna move that over, please? Okay, so if you look right here, you've got volts, motor, amps, and temperatures. And then there's one on here that's gonna tell you RPMs. RPM 0, okay? So now, there's your RPMs. 10,000 RPMs. It's really challenging our battery. Now we got low voltage warning. And you can see where the throttle output is and how much speed. Now watch, what's kind of cool about this is I'm gonna spin this and see if it gives feedback. I don't see it. I evidently can't spin it fast enough, but I bet it would actually spin for us, which is pretty cool. Now throttle cuts on and we should be safe again. So lots of information that you can glean from these screens, and it's crazy because all this is wireless now. And so when you're doing forward programming, you're having full duplex communication between here, but the AR631 is flyby telemetry, meaning that some of the data will update as you get close and other of the data will be updated all the time, okay? So if you fly really far away from yourself, like a lot of these clubs do, then you may not get updates all the time. Whereas if you went to the AR637T, then you would have full range. So that's 2 antennas. So there's full duplex communication, and you have full range on that too, which is kind of nice. So anyway, it's a considerably more expensive receiver and still 6 channels though. Okay, so hopefully we answered all your questions except for we're going to look at center of gravity. And then also, if I didn't mention this, this foam to foam is available at Horizon. So if you're ordering this plane, you can buy some of this and have it with you. The competitive offerings are about the same price for just a different size bottle. So it's a little bit cheaper, but it's a smaller bottle. And we've had really good luck with both of them. So.
Yes. So this is recommending 75 to 85 millimeters back from the leading edge of the wing.
Okay. So.
And they're showing it at that like furthest out point.
Okay. All right, good. They actually showed it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna wake up our calipers, close them, zero them in the millimeter setting, and then 75 to 80, you said?
75 to 85.
Okay, so 75 to 85. So here's 75, walk it back, good enough. So from there back, bring it out a ways, try to keep your alignment. I like to poke a little bump into the foam. Same thing here, kind of find that point, equidistant. And you guys see what I'm doing, I'm just lining up visually. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, okay? Because there's a big range. 10 millimeter range on a plane this small is a big range. So you can also measure back 10 from there too. So there you go. So about a centimeter, if you guys hadn't figured that out yet. Okay, now hand me this felt tipped pen. So I then darken my holes with my marker. And you're probably thinking to yourself, you stabbed this plane a total of
6 holes in this plane.
6 times, Brian. You know, should we call the police? You could, but they're probably just gonna say, tell me where you watch this video so I can also follow along. And that would be great if you would tell all the police that you call to watch my videos. Okay, so now we check the CG by flipping the plane on its back. And we're gonna put our finger onto the back holes first. And it's nose heavy. And on the front holes, we're pretty darn neutral. So that means that somewhere between the holes, we're nose heavy. So that tells me if you're using a bigger pack, you're gonna wanna be kind of careful how you do this, okay? So you'll wanna push this back just a hair if it's a bigger pack so that you're not super nose heavy. But to be honest, I'd rather you be nose heavy on a beginner flight than be tail heavy. Now, the other thing too to keep in mind is if you're hand launching, because this has AS3X Plus, you should have the hand launch assist. Okay, so now it's like favoring almost tail heavy on the front and pretty nose heavy on the back. So you can push that nose weight back, AKA the battery, a little bit further even still. And you just keep doing it until you get it to where you're comfortable and you like the way it feels. You guys can see how that shelf liner works now. It resists it slipping. Now, also keep in mind, if they're recommending 2200 4S as the maximum size, you're gonna tend to be more nose heavy. So that's tail heavy on the front and it's nose heavy on the back. And so when I'm in the middle, show them a close up of my middle finger. See what I'm talking about, guys? So now we're balanced right in the center of the range that they recommend. So that's a great starting point. But just remember, you could fly it on a 3S 1300, considerably smaller battery, okay? So if you use that, you're gonna probably have to stuff that all the way up into the nose. So just be careful about where your wire ends up so you're not into the back of the motor, okay? That being said, that's all the setup for this particular plane, the P-51D Mustang 1.0 from E-flite. Obviously, we looked at thrust reverse, it doesn't have it. Flaps, it doesn't have it. LEDs, it doesn't have it. Retracts, it doesn't have it. Have I covered my bases? But it does have fixed gear, it does have soft tires. Oh, by the way, this one's also soft, very soft actually, and that is fixed, and as you can see, it does actuate. It's removable, and these are all removable without tools. And it is nice that the tail wheel comes off. A lot of times on P-51s, we notice that the tail wheel is not removable. So also in terms of tools, you're gonna need basically a Phillips #2, and you can have this thing together in literally minutes if you don't foobar the plug like Brian Phillips RC did. Now, the other thing too is it has a unique prop size. So if you're brand new to the hobby and you wanna hedge your bets at success, then don't get a spare prop. But my suggestion is while you're ordering the plane, maybe go ahead and order the prop too. And if you're ordering from our links in the video description below, just know that you'll be supporting Brian Phillips RC. and all the things we do for the RC community, which many times means making a fool of yourself by poking holes in brand new planes so that you can show people where to stick it. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll do our very best to get to you with answers in a timely manner. And if we don't, and you want to find an easier way to reach us for comments and questions, then look no further than Patreon. Patreon is a good way to get in my back pocket or side pocket or wherever I happen to have my phone on that given day, because I do not get notifications on our YouTube channel. I would never have a quiet second. Hopefully we've answered all your questions though. And the truth is, we do go out of our way big time to try to answer questions, because we know how hard it is to get started in aviation, especially RC aviation. It is a challenging skill that is worth every ounce of effort you're going to put into it. And it's worth the relatively high cost of entry, especially if you're doing something like a programmable transmitter. I highly recommend, if you need a middle step, go to the NX7E. It's that white and gray one, looks like a cow over there. If you want to know more about it, we have Unbox build radio setups for radios as well, which includes the NX7. Also, keep in mind, you can use this transmitter to work with your simulators. And if you want to use a simulator, there's a simulator that you can get from E-flite that's called E-flite, and it works really good. You can use this thing wirelessly with a device that's a dongle you put into your USB port, and you bind it, and you can fly exactly on the exact transmitter you're going to use with your plane. And that's true for all the way down to the Batman ready to fly transmitters that come with the cheapy planes, all the way up to this, okay? The only thing it doesn't do is the SLT6 transmitters use a different protocol. This is DSM-X and DSM-2 and DSM, I think just DSM-X and DSM-2 work with that dongle.
Right.
So keep in mind, you have to buy that, and there are some ready to fly planes that come with that as a feature. So be looking for that if you want it. Like in the Habu, there was a time when we had that included. I'm not sure if that's still true, but we're always forecasting the next big thing, and we want you guys to know that if you want to learn to fly, there's never been a better time than right now, okay? So learn to fly, do it now, and you will be through the training wheel period quicker than you can imagine, but you do have to put in the time. I cannot make you learn to fly, and you could have $1 million, billion sitting in the bank, and you could have every toy you want and still not know how to do it, because it takes a little bit of skill. It takes a little bit of effort, a little bit of risk, and a little bit of success. And you'll find it if you go to places like Brian Phillips RC, because we're not going to leave you high and dry. We promise. And part of the reason we do that is because we want this audience to not only be big on our channel, because obviously that wins for us on YouTube. Sorry, there's a fly. But it also helps our hobby community to get bigger, higher legislative weight, which is what we need. We need more weight. We need more people doing this. We want to drive down the cost of all these amazing airplanes, because if there's a bigger pool of buyers, then we can drive down the cost, drive up the efficiency for the manufacturers. And yes, we do work with all sorts of competitive manufacturers. So we're at a very fortunate position here where we can help impact change for a positive in the RC community. And so we hope that we're doing that. And if we are, throw it in the comments once in a while. It doesn't have to be every day, but it is heartwarming to see these kind of remarks. But it also helps to encourage those people that are just new to the community to understand that we are doing the right thing here. And we're not just trying to sell stuff, but we are trying to sell stuff, because that is how we fund our channel after all. So at the end of the day, do we want you to buy this? I guess that's really kind of up to you. I haven't flown it yet. I hope it's great. But if you guys want to buy one and support Brian Phillips RC, do it from the links in the video description below, or head to brianphillipsrc.com. And when you follow those are the exact same links, except that we have like a little easier, scroll menu so you can see pictures of our thumbnail from the respective playlist. And if there was a place that YouTube was failing right now, it was the search results on playlists are very terrible. Terrible.
Super terrible.
We are creators and we can barely find our own stuff. It's terrible. That's why we have bprc.me or brianphillipsrc.com. Same place, short domain, long domain. You can go there, you can compare and contrast these things, and we have links to buy or links to go to the playlist so you can watch all the videos about a prospective plane or type of plane, depending on what you search for. And it's right there at your fingertips. So literally thousands and thousands of long format video right now. You can watch it. You don't even have to wait. But if you're waiting for the next unreleased product, it's probably sitting in that room right now.
Probably.
Waiting to be unboxed. And we can't wait to do it right here on Brian Phillips RC. So stay tuned. So much more to come. And by the way, if you haven't clicked the bell when you're subscribing, do so you're notified of new content. We put out new content probably 5, 6, 7 times a week. About half of it is gonna be shorts, and the rest of it is gonna be long format. But just keep in mind, if you guys are long format viewers, you're gonna know that the shorts are basically highlight reels from our long format content. So if you just wanna keep appraised of what's going on at Brian Phillips RC, check out the shorts, watch those suckers. Don't forget to smash the like button on those things and help us to utilize the algorithm to our advantage, because we are up against some pretty high odds right now. There's a lot of people that are selling some BS slinging on YouTube, and all they want to do is sell a plane. Every plane, whatever plane they got in their repertoire. Our repertoire is so wide, we don't care what you get, we just want you to be happy with it, and we're going to help direct you in that direction. You can always tell if I like a plane, by the way.
Yeah.
You'll know I'm a bad faker.
Yeah.
All right, that's all you get for tonight. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. Come back for more.